is frozen.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Because I double checked
Hi,
my internet
everyone.
connection and
Welcome
it's
to
okay.
our event. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. Please feel free to settle in. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, everyone, can you hear
Perfect.
me? Okay,
Yes.
great. My internet not great, so I'm going to have to just keep my screen off. But welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our event. We're going to get started in a few minutes. Feel free to get comfortable. A few more people join us. Okay, all right, we'll get started now. Thank you all again for joining us today for our PIM event from local to global. My name is Leslie, and I'm going to be your host tonight. So our event, just before we get started, I want to just quickly go through some Zoom features with everyone, just in case you're not familiar with Zoom. Or you're just not familiar with all the upgraded features. So can you guys all do me a big favor, scroll down, that would pop up? Can you click on reactions? It can either look like a heart or it can look like a little smiley face with a plus sign on it. Can you click on that and then hit the applause button, please? Just hit the applause button for us, just because we all deserve a round of applause, especially our speaker today. Great, thank you, thank you. Okay, now can you also then do me a favor of also scrolling down to the bottom, and then at the very bottom you should see a button that says chat. Can you click on chat real quick? And a little chat box should pop up, and in that chat box can you just type in the chat what country you're tuning in from or what city? I want to see where you guys are all tuning in from. So I am in Beijing. We have from Amsterdam, Netherlands. That's really cool. Okay, we have someone else from Beijing. Awesome. Awesome. Who else? Where else are you guys tuning in from? I know that Jose is tuning in from Peru. Oh, we have someone from Ukraine. Awesome. Really cool. Cameroon. Right, we have people from all over. It's fantastic. I know Ting Ting is also in Beijing. We have a few from Beijing here. Happy Mid-Autumn Festival, everyone. Thank you for still taking the time joining us today. Okay. Which is really, really awesome. Okay, so we're gonna just get started. And now that you guys have found where the chat room is and also where the reaction buttons are, I really encourage you guys to take advantage of that. During this entire event, because first of all, in an online event is
Yes, Leslie, I am afraid that we are missing you because
see your reactions. So if the speaker says something that's really, really resonates with you, a good way for us to just know how you're feeling is if you just send us an emoji, so we know how you're feeling. We know you're kind of taking the temperature where you're at. but also in this chat box. Take advantage of it. Ask any questions you have for. Hi, everyone. Am I back? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, now it's much better.
Okay, much better.
I can hear you now.
Sorry about that, everyone. But thank you for letting me know. I'm back on our Wi-Fi, so that should help. Okay, so really quickly, I'll just go back to my screen here, and apologies for that. A little bit about PIM. So our name is Purpose in Motion. We're a social enterprise that empowers young people with education, resources, and networks to become mission-driven leaders and effective change makers. And this is our 10th anniversary, which is really exciting. We've been around for 10 years. And in these 10 years, we have impacted over 13,000 aspiring leaders from all over the world in over 110 countries. We've also mobilized more than $850,000 to help different organizations and startups, especially impacting young people. And if you're interested in learning more about our anniversary events, feel free to follow us here at pimglobal.org to stay tuned for all of our future events. Okay. Ting, feel free to let me know if I, and also choppy too, if you can't hear me. Okay. All right. And then without further ado, let me quickly introduce our speaker today. His name is Jose. He is the founder and CEO of a startup that provides comprehensive solutions to empower organizations and individuals to advance the net zero transition through sustainable infrastructure. And he is a really dedicated PIM Tech for Good mentor as well. That's super, super experienced. And throughout his career, he has been recognized as one of the 30 young leaders building a carbon neutral future by One Young World and BP, London, UK. And also, he's been named a Leader in Innovation Fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineering. He's a global shaper of the World Economic Forum, along with many, many, many different titles. All right, so super excited to have him with us today. And we're going to dive into his stories about how he has scaled multiple enterprises to different countries. All right, so without further ado, let me, can we all give Jose a big warm welcome, please? Awesome. Great. Okay, thanks for joining us today, Jose. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. Thanks, Leslie, for sharing the introduction of the session. First, and before anything, I would like to give to all of you a warm welcome to this interview. I'm here to share a little bit of my story scaling my two companies. My name is Jose, as actually Leslie said, and I am from Peru. Currently, I'm living in Lima, which is the capital of the country. But the last year, I was living in Chicago in the US as part of a fellowship, thanks to one of my companies. So I am really glad to be here.
Awesome. Fantastic. We're really, really honored to have you here today too. Thank you for being willing to share your expertise and stories with us. So let's just quickly dive in. I want to just quickly ask you about your own entrepreneurial journey, Jose. Can you tell us about your very first enterprise, of when you started it and what it was about?
Yeah, absolutely. I started very young, actually. I was finishing the undergraduate degree at the university. I am a mechanical and electrical engineer. In the last year of my studies, I saw a problem. Actually, my mom is from the Peruvian Andes, and we used to travel to the Peruvian Andes when I was a child. And I saw a huge problem there. There are many farmers who are growing, for example, corn, but they don't receive what they deserve. They are selling the kilogram of corn at some price, and the companies who buy this product, who buy the car, just toast the corn or other adding grains and multiply the value of the corn by 10 times. But unfortunately, many of these people living in these rural areas don't have electricity, don't have machines to toast the grains. So using my knowledge, I start to think there might be a way to help this group of people to create economic development for this region. So it was how I started my first venture, which was called Elixir del Bani, which is a Spanish word, but means essentially seeds of the Andean. We developed and designed special solar-based machines that were used by the farmers to toast the grains. So in this way, we provide them with a special machine to toast the grain, but also the machine was sustainable because I'm fully commitment to the sustainability in every project I am developing or running currently. So it was a first experience. We started with this machine, but my first concern was how I can actually implement this in the real world, because we might be creating something cool in the laboratory, but we don't know if it's gonna work perfectly or it's gonna work in the real world. So when I designed this machine with my team, because we were a team of 5 people, one of them was even a professor from the university. We decided to go to the Andean region. Initially, we took a prototype and we started to receive feedback. So this is the classic part of an entrepreneur story. We need to test what we are doing. No matter in what stage you are, at the beginning, when you are starting to growing, or when you are a big company, even big companies today test many cases in order to find which is the best product or which is the best medium or channel in order to deliver a product. So we took the prototype to the Peruvian Andes and we started to test, and we learned a lot, and we started with implementation in 2014. It was our first experience there. We helped about initially 100 farmers. It was when we started to look how we can make this company bigger. So it was my first company, a company which was a solar-based company that in order to help farmers to toast Andean grains.
That's so amazing. And congratulations, that's 10 years ago. It's like
Yeah.
exactly 10 years ago, 2014. And how amazing that was of like, you were so young then and you saw a problem and you decided to take action, and your actions was able to really help improve the livelihoods of real people, of real farmers, and their work. And I think that in its own is very, very applaudable. And yeah, thank you for just sharing that. I have like a quick question about it too. I know later on you had opportunities to scale that technology. And I want to just ask, like, what was the kind of thinking that went into that? Did people approach you to scale it, or were you actively looking to scale it?
Yeah, actually, that's a really interesting question, because I am the founder of 2 companies. This was the first company, which is the solar-based company. And then in 2017, I founded another company, which is a learning company in order to advance the sustainability and net zero fields. So there are 2 companies here. I scaled the first one, but also I scaled the second one. With this first company, about the solar-based company, we identified there were similar problems in other countries in the Latin American region. For example, I clearly remember that we identified that problem in Colombia that time. So we identified different mediums and channels that we might be using in order to scale that technology. Because once we covered different parts in Peru, the technology was completely ready to be scaled. So we received the support of one of the biggest company that support farmers, which is Bayer. We took the technology to Colombia, and also we needed to understand how to change the technology itself. Because even though we might be thinking, okay, the technology is useful to toast corn in the Peruvian Andes, bear in mind that the different cities in Colombia have different geographic conditions. So how we might be toasting a grain in the Andean is not equal how we might be toasting that grain in the Colombian. So thanks to the support, for example, in this case of this program running by Bayer, we introduced technology in Colombia, and we learned a lot. So the first lesson learned from this first company was, okay, you need to make a decision. You have a technology, and you might be thinking, I can continue introducing this to different geographic regions in my own country. However, if your technology is fully ready to be at scale, you might identify some programs that might be a really nice support for you in order to introduce your technology in another country. It was the case of our first technology, the first company they found.
Right, right. And that is such a big question to ask, right? So you've identified, you've developed this technology that obviously benefits a lot of farmers. And what is the direction you want to scale, right? Do you want to scale internally with different markets in your country, or do you want to bring it to another country? But obviously, like, such a privilege to be able to even do that. It just meant that you created something that could help and impact a lot of people. Really quickly, can you tell us about what that process and experience was like working with Bayer then, with such a big company to come in to help you scale? Because coming from like where you were like a very young entrepreneur that started off to try to solve a problem. You probably didn't have a lot of experience working with a big company to help you scale, right? So what were some challenges along the way, and what are some lessons you learned?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I was at the beginning of my 20s. Actually, I only had one professional experience, an internship that I did in one of the energy companies here in Peru. Um, it's really challenging because you need to grow very quickly, professionally and personally. I remember clearly that I even had some meetings with the CEO of Bayer here in Peru, and you need to learn very quickly how to present, how to negotiate, how to wait for an answer. For example, many times when we are very young, we think that we are going to receive the feedback or the answer or the final decision from the big company as soon as possible. That's not the case, especially if you deal with big companies. They have many procedures to deal with, and you need to understand that there are many aspects that might influence the final result. For example, in terms of time, the time that you are going to have the final answer. So I needed to learn how to, especially how to negotiate, because when we applied to the program and we went to different stages to be selected for the program in order to receive the support to scale, we needed to make many presentations for the different managers of the Bayer company here in Peru. But also when we introduce a technology in Colombia, we need to present in front of the different associations of farmers. So imagine just this case, young entrepreneurs in a different country presenting in front of many farmers in a different association. So it was really scary at the beginning, but we need to learn. Also, we might fail. That's why I received the support of some mentors. One interesting thing that I can recommend to anyone that is going through this challenging and uncertainty when scaling company is trying to learn from others that have done a similar work. This is one of the most useful pieces of advice that I remember for that experience, because I was very young, but always I was asking many questions to the mentors. I was reading a lot. This was the time when I started to read more than any time at the university. So
Oh,
I
wow.
needed to learn a lot. So you need to grow professionally and personally very quickly.
Right. Right. Yes. And I think that you really sum up that entrepreneurial journey too. Like, you have to learn really quickly, and you have to be willing to take on all the different challenges that come your way. And one thing is that I think we kind of mentioned this too, you probably will never truly fully feel prepared, but you have to be willing to go and do what you need to do, even if it were to fail. And I think that that's something that you have really displayed there. So for all young entrepreneurs that are listening, I think something you can take away is that it is normal to feel uncomfortable. It's normal to feel like you might be a bit out of your depth, or something might be a bit scary as you're growing. But it's all good for you. It's all part of the journey, and you have to embrace that and be prepared. Be prepared to not know all the answers, but also trust that you can learn. Like what Jose was saying, he learned a lot by reading. So make sure you read a lot, find good mentors, and trust in your ability to learn and adapt. Right? So I think that's a really great lesson. We're gonna quickly shift gears a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about your second enterprise then, Jose?
Yes, I founded this second company in 2017 when we actually sold the technology of the first company to a university here in Peru, to the main engineering university, because they use that technology to take that technology to the next level in order to provide some solutions for the government. So it was our exit there. And then I funded a second company, which is an online-based company. It's essentially, we decided how we can empower more engineers to do great course like the one we did with the first company. It was our initial idea, how we can empower them. And we identified that there are many trends that we will be needing more professionals with knowledge and training in the sustainability fields, how to advance the sustainability in the world in different areas. But given our own experience and my degree and my professional experience, we decided to empower them specifically in the sustainable infrastructure, how to build new plants, hydroelectric plants, solar, wind power plants, because there are many people who are moving from the oil and gas sector to these renewable energy sectors. Who are training them? So it was the big question. That's why we decided to found this second company. We started in 2017, but we decided to transform how we might be receiving online education and how we can transform the methodology. So we started to doing a lot of research, and also we had the support of an educational consultant, and we test many methodologies. Initially, we designed, for example, big lectures, and then we use microlearning. In the end, we then ended up using the combination of both aspects, but also with the support of machine learning, we were able to customize the learning. So it was the second company. And we started offering our courses and training programs to companies and individuals here in Peru.
Nice, fantastic. And I really love that too. Like kind of a lot of the models that you have used, and I think this may be a trend for you. It's like how do you package something that you can scale quickly, but that can help a lot of people, right? Like this, in this case, you're actually trying to teach technology in a way and online that can impact a lot of people. So that's always exciting. But it also brings us back to this kind of central question then. So your company's doing really well. You found product market fit. It's growing. How do you know when it's a good time to scale, and how you should scale? Should you scale within the country? So maybe to a bigger market, to a different market, or is it better strategy to then scale to a completely different country, right? Rather than your home country. Like how do you go about approaching that, Jose?
Yeah. With my second company, I had in mind that there are big opportunities when we scale a company. Because given our previous experience with the solar-based company and having scaled that company to another country, when I was starting the second company, I thought it would be a good way to prepare the company from the beginning in order to scale later. So when we started creating the courses of the enlightening programs, we decided to use international standard rules or international standard guidelines in order to produce the courses. For example, I remember clearly this case. We were creating a course of project management for the construction of wind power plants, but we decided to use an international standard in order to create the content of the course. Since the beginning, we prepare our courses with the idea that later or sooner we will be scaling. And the reason is very simple. When we have two options. We can continue going in depth into in our own market, our own country, we might be growing to a different regions, to different countries. We need to analyze the costs.
Hmm.
You can be the one single big player of your own country, but you need to invest a lot more. But if you go to another country with the same budget, you can grow exponentially at the beginning. So you need to make a financial decision there. What is the key insight in order to say, if I continue going in depth in my own country, or I need to scale to a different region? It's a financial aspect, the return of your investment.
Right. Right. Okay. Wow. There's a lot to dig in there. But really quickly, I like how you were saying that it looked like when you started the second company, you, even from the beginning, you had your eye on scaling it potentially internationally. And that's why from day one, you were using international standards and making sure that you met all those standards so that you had the foundation right to then scale. And I think this is something that a lot of people probably don't think about. It's like you actually need to kind of have an idea where you want to go so that you can start focusing on that. And from the beginning, it's harder to change later on. So know where your end goal really is from the beginning. So that's one thing. But I like what you were saying this here, secondly, about actually analyzing the costs. So when we talk about scaling a business, we're often thinking just about how much profit you can probably bring in and revenue because you're scaling. But we often also don't factor in much about what the overhead is and what is the cost of investment in order to have that ability to scale. So I'm really glad you brought that up. But can you explain a little bit more about why you think it's to become like the number one big player in your own country, you'll have to invest more than if you necessarily were to grow to a different country. Can you just explain it in a little bit more detail, please?
Yes, absolutely. When you have covered some important parts of your own market in your country, and you continue investing the same amount of money, your return from that investment tends to get lower.
Mm.
So we saw this at first hand when we invested some money, and we were seeing that the results from that investment, for example, um, for marketing, for the courses, the numbers of new customers in my own country was not growing at the same pace that we would be growing in another country. But this is the key part. This is a key part as well. How do we know which country? How do we know that it's the right time to introduce the product to a different country rather than continue investing in my own country, trying to grow in my own market? The reason in my own case was that we started to receive some questions, some interest by engineers, individuals, and some companies from a different country. In this case, was from Colombia and Mexico that engineers were asking, I would need to take the course. Is it possible for me to register for the course? So we know that it was the right signal in order to say, okay, this is the time to start thinking about the scaling to these potential two countries. It's the customer, it's the market of the other region that start telling you, okay, start to thinking that it's possible for your product to scale now. It's not your own decision. Even your numbers in your own country are not doing the same return in terms of the investment in marketing and the new customers. It's not a clear indication that you need to scale. Imagine if your product is not fully prepared, if your product is not well customized to a different country. It's the interest of the customers in a different country that tells you that you need to start thinking about the scaling in your own company.
Right, right. Wow, very, very insightful there. Just a quick summary there. I understand what you're saying now. So in order to be like the biggest player in your own country, the more you invest, it's the law of marginal returns, right? So like one strategy works, the more you invest in it, your returns are probably less as time goes on. And I think this is why a lot of your tech giants, like say Facebook and stuff, started scaling to different countries before they penetrated the entire US market, right? It's actually their returns were faster and bigger once they started scaling to a different country in a market that was ready. So that's a really cool insight you brought in. But the second thing here, where you're talking about markets, was really, really great advice too. I think a lot of times with entrepreneurs, because we're so used to building something, we're so used to making our own decisions, that sometimes it can kind of feel like, oh, I want to scale. I'm just going to pick a country and a new market I want to scale to and just make it work. Right. And we kind of think about it that way. But it's a good reminder where you're coming in from, that it shouldn't be you that's driving that decision. It should be the market. And you should listen to the markets that are ready and have the need for what you're presenting and what you have. So in your case, it was Colombia, right? And kind of Mexico. You may or may not have been ready to scale to these places. They were not necessarily countries you're looking to scale to, but you already had people from those markets reaching out, telling you that they wanted your products. So it gave you a direction. It was like, okay, there's something here, let's explore it. And it looks like this market is right for us to scale in. Right? So for everyone listening, make sure you pay attention to what the market's needs are in different places. Like, check your own ego, check where your own how you're looking at things, look at what the market actually needs. I think that's like a really great lesson. But like, back to you though, Jose. So what are some challenges, unexpected challenges you experienced when you scaled to Colombia?
Yeah. Once you know that it's time to scale because the market is there is a clear need in the other market. For example, in your case, when other engineers and other companies from other countries were asking about the product, we decided, okay, it's time to start thinking. But this is the first step of the scaling process. Actually, it's the very beginning process to scale anything related to a business. So once we knew that, we need to make a decision. We need to make a decision. It was first Colombia, it was first Mexico. Even though the both countries speak Spanish, our courses were based in Spanish at that time, we need to make a decision. We started to analyze the Colombian market and then also the Mexican market. And we identified that even though there are some similarities, there are big differences as well between the two countries. For example, in the Colombian market, they tend to use some specific payment methods. However, in the Mexico country, they tend to use a completely different payment methods. So
Wow.
one of the unexpected challenges that we needed to deal with was first the payment method, because we used to have here in our country PayPal, and also we used to have transactions, bank transactions. But for Colombia, they wanted to go to the bank and make the payment. It was their first option. The second option was to go some transactions, but with their local payment methods. For example, imagine that in your own country you have a main method to make small payments or medium-sized payments. They wanted to use their own methods of payment. So initially we started to introduce PayPal, but any of the people used that. Even though they were continuing saying, I want to buy the course, they were writing emails, I want to register for the course, I want to register for the training. They were not paying. So it was my first challenge, actually. So I decided to call these people and ask you what limitation you have now in order to complete the payment, because I would like you to register for the course. And those people told me, I am just to use this app to make payments in my country. And your platform doesn't have that method in order to send the money to register for the course. So it was a first challenge. So we needed to implement those transactions in our website, those apps. Thanks to an agreement that we have with some of the apps, we implemented those methods in our own website. So this was how we overcame that challenge, and we were able to sell the courses in Colombia. But there are other challenges. For example, the political aspect. It happened later when we started to introduce our product to Argentina. Initially, we offered the courses in dollars, American dollars in Argentina, and people, even though they were able to afford that, they weren't able to find the dollars in order to pay for the course. So it was a second unexpected political issue that we needed to deal with. Given to the economic situation in Argentina, they couldn't obtain dollars in order to pay for the course. And even if they were able to pay their own money and the bank make the exchange from the local currency to the US dollars, the rate were very high. They weren't able and they weren't willing to afford that high exchange rate. Therefore, they wouldn't be able to buy the courses. So we needed to change the model of payment in Argentina. Okay, they cannot use American dollars, but they can pay using their own money, their own currency. So even rather than publishing the price of the courses in American dollars, we created a system so you can look from any Latin American country, especially Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, and you are going to see the prices of the courses in your own currency. You are going to see in pesos, which is the currency of Colombia. You are going to see with the local currency in Argentina. So you are less afraid of making the payment because it's your own currency. This is how we overcame that challenge in Argentina. So in Argentina, they can show the prices in their own currency, and when they pay in their own currency, and it's our own cost that we make the transaction at the exchange from the local currency of Argentina to American dollars. So we needed to customize not only the payment method in the case of Argentina, but also how we are displaying prices of the courses.
Wow, that's so fascinating. Amazing. So in order to actually scale, you almost had to figure out your own e-commerce transactions in order for it to work in these different markets. That's really fascinating. But really quickly, I think that just says a lot too, right? So just because you're really successful in your own home country in a market that you're familiar with, you can't you can't assume that you know everything it takes to scale to a country that could just be neighboring you, that can be really similar, speak Spanish, right? You just can't walk in there and assume that your same model is going to work exactly the same. So you need to really be open-minded of figuring out what the locals need in order for you to be able to scale. And another thing too, like that is kind of crazy to me to think about, like PayPal, right? Like for me, like electronic payments like that are so much easier. They're so much more convenient. And you just assume everyone would be okay adopting that. But here you are in Colombia, it's like that they did not prefer that. They prefer going physically to the bank to make those transactions, and they felt safer doing that. So I think that's just another reminder. You need to understand the market and the consumers. And ultimately, consumers are the gods, right? Even if it doesn't make sense to you, even if you think your method is better than what they're used to, you need to listen to what their needs are and what they prefer. And try to make it easier for them to enable them to make those transactions. And that's ultimately what you did. You helped create a new system that displayed the currencies of different markets. So it made people a lot more comfortable to make that transaction. Oh, and yeah, that's so fascinating. That then actually brings me to my next question, because you talked a little bit about politics, geopolitics in there, kind of with Argentina. And I think that's also something that a lot of entrepreneurs, we kind of overlook. We're always looking at the markets maybe and the economy, but we sometimes forget that when you're scaling into a different country, everything in this new country can affect you. The new laws can affect you, the geopolitics can affect you, and the culture can definitely affect you. There's a lot more factors. So do you have any advice or any stories you can share about how do you manage all that? How do you stay on top of all these new changes in a different country that can potentially come back and affect your business?
Yeah, thinking this way, um, your customers are living in a country. Whatever happens to that country is gonna influence your customers. If there are big changes in politics, if there are big changes in macroeconomic aspects of the country, that events are going to affect your customers. So it's a key idea when you are thinking about scaling. Whatever you might be doing, even if you are scaling yourself, you need to think that you are going to live in a context. Your products, your business are going to live in a context. So whatever happens to that country are going to influence your business some way, for positive, sometimes, for negative, unfortunately, sometimes as well. This is the key idea. For example, when we were selling the courses in Argentina, they were moving from one government to a completely different government. The economic model of the two administrations were completely different. So the possibility for an Argentinian people to obtain dollars changed very quickly. At the beginning, they might not get American dollars. But then when the administration changed a little bit, the situation changed. Some people start to think, now I can pay with PayPal, for example. So a second lesson was, even if you think, okay, at this point, people are not going to use PayPal, just let that on the website if you already have that method of payment. So the more method of payment you have, the better for your business, because the easier it's going to be for your customer in order to complete a transaction. So every week, honestly, even today, every week I read the political aspect of each of the countries we will sell courses. For example, imagine that you are selling courses in Mexico or in Colombia, and the administration announced that they are going to invest 1 billion US dollars in the development of wind power plants. Which courses probably your engineers are going to need? Wind-related courses or solar-related courses. The investment were solar-based investments. So you need to be aware of the political context or the administration context. Similar, if a government announced they're going to transform the efficiency of the energy sector because they are going to implement electric vehicles, you need to start thinking about that you might obtain some opportunities for that announcement. So you need to be aware of the context. That is a very classic piece of advice, that you need to read how the country is moving on. There are many
Wow.
opportunities, but also challenges that might emerge from the decision of the government, and you need to be prepared. You need to do your best to navigate those changes. The sooner you anticipate the changes, the better responses you are going to have. For example, when in Colombia, they decided to promote more renewable energy, specifically wind and solar power plants. We decided to create one single course only for Colombia. Only for Colombia, because there were many engineers who were seeing an opportunity for them in order to grow their own careers. They were actually working, for example, in electric substation power systems or line transmission power system, but they wanted to move to the wind industry. The reason why? Because they wanted to earn higher salaries. And they were looking for trainings, and the responses of the universities sometimes might be slower. So startups, given the flexibility that we might have, we can respond sooner, and we can create and we can customize our courses. So for example, the people from Colombia tends to see our platform or website in a different model. We tend to highlight the courses that they need the most in comparison to the people from Peru. We customize even the design to the platform in order to adapt to responses to what's going on in the country.
Wow. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. But also so fascinating. It kind of make me feel like in order to be a really good entrepreneur as they're scaling internationally, you need to be a great diplomat too. You have to really understand a lot of different elements that are moving around in the country. So yeah, fascinating. A lot of dedication there. But that actually reminds me of another interesting story you had shared with me too, Jose. So I remember you telling me that I think earlier on when were starting to sell your products to Colombia, you're starting to try to understand the market and the people. You actually were, even though you're the CEO and jumping in and managing all this, but you would hop on sales calls and you would meet up with people directly and kind of pretend that you were just a sales rep to be able to speak to the locals and understand what their stories are. You kind of went undercover in order to understand the landscape, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you learned out of that experience?
Yeah, actually, I'm revealing a secret, but I have been doing that for many times, even when I started to sell the courses here in my own country. One day I received, or we received an email from a project manager from one of the largest infrastructure projects here in Peru. He was buying the course and he had some questions about the course. So I myself decided to call him, to phone him, and so we had an interesting conversation. But he didn't know that I was the founder and the CEO of the company. He imagine even today he might be thinking that I was a representative of the company, a customer representative. So I asked many questions, not directly, but just to learn the feelings and sensations, and I learned a bunch of knowledge to improve the course, how we can communicate better with this new segment. It was our starting point in order to introduce the courses, the training programs to companies even, because that project manager told me a lot of interesting insights, and I was receiving the insight at first hand. When we were introducing the courses to different countries, for example, in the case of Mexico as well, and Colombia, but I remember clearly a conversation from a customer from Mexico. His name was Armando. Armando was the project manager of several schools. He was in charge of like 25 schools, the construction of 25 schools in Mexico. I decided to do the same. I called Armando uh, using the official phone of the company. We paid the international fees in order to complete the code. I had an interesting conversation as well. I learned a lot, which made methods of payment he preferred, what type of trends he was seeing, what other courses he might be needing. Actually, at the end of that conversation, we had a conversation with the team, and we decided to modify and to customize one of the courses because the regulation in Mexico, for example, don't allow some kind of technical procedures in the construction sector. So it was really insightful. So every time that you can, either at the beginning or later, or when you are scaling, you can have a conversation without telling that you are the CEO. Trust me, you are going to learn a lot because the responses from the customer when they know that you are the CEO or you are the founder is not going to be the same. But if they know that they think that they're speaking with a person that they can complain with anything, they're going to tell you everything. That's the reason why I'm really happy to say this number because I'm really proud of this number. From the last 5 courses that we launched, we don't have any returns, any replacements, any refunds from the money that the customers paid because we were learning a lot from each customer.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That was just jaw-dropping to me. And I get these goosebumps just hearing you share that, Jose. Like, so amazing. I think that's so humbling as well as a founder and CEO. Like you've built 2 successful companies, you've scaled them, right? But to still put your customer first, to make sure that you spent the time to speak to them, to understand what their needs are, to make sure that you really are fulfilling the needs and able to help them. Like that just speaks volumes about who you are and also the type of entrepreneur you are. Like you never lost sight of why you're doing what you were doing. And also like how like being willing to let go of any ego you have, right? You went into these conversations expecting and hoping people will complain so that you can understand what problems there are and how you can improve. And that's not easy really for anyone. And I think like for entrepreneurs, like it is challenging for us because we built this. This is very personal to us. And yet,
Yeah.
even though we know that we need good feedback in order to make it better, it's not always easy to hear feedback about something you put your entire life and soul into, right? But that what an incredible story to do that. And I love how you did that even when you became successful, even when you were scaling. So every step kind of along the way, you didn't lose touch with who your actual customers were, the stories that we're going through. So yeah, I think if there's anything like that would be the number one takeaway for everyone here, that when you're looking to scale and you're testing the market, obviously look at your numbers, look at how much it would cost, what's the best for the company in that way, but also make sure that you actually speak to real people and not just numbers about what the needs are and what the market actually looks like at the moment. And you'll learn a lot more about the context of the people, how their everyday is like, and how maybe geopolitics, the politics, all of those things kind of affect them, right? So yeah, it's fantastic. So make sure you hold on to these early tools. They'll help you out early on your journey as an entrepreneur, but they can continue to serve you later on as you mature into a more successful entrepreneur, that you're building a bigger company. Kind of to end off then, Jose, do you have any advice or skills that you feel like other entrepreneurs should develop as you're learning to scale? So the skills you have in the beginning, they can stay with you, but what are some additional skills you think that you need to develop as you're scaling your company?
Yeah, thanks for that question, because if your company is scaling or is growing into different market regions, you yourself also need to continue growing, and your team needs to continue growing in terms of not only numbers, but also in terms of the skills and capabilities that they might have. A very interesting learning from this side is that we need to learn how to read very quickly the customer from different regions. Your team might be prepared to deal and to read the customer of your own country. But when we establish the teams in another countries, we needed to tell them, okay, this is a balance. You need to keep the culture and the values of the company, of the startup, but also you need to be willing to use your own cultural knowledge to respond quickly and to adapt quickly to the reality of your own country. So it's a balance between your own balance, your own values, and your own guidelines of your startup, but also the cultural aspects of that country. So one key aspect is, for me as a CEO specifically, was to, okay, how we can balance that, how we can be sure that they are using and they are putting into practice your values, but they are using your own cultural knowledge in order to respond and to adapt and to serve the customers. So I learned essentially from the culture of them. So I did myself put time in order to spend a lot of time with the country, with the people from other countries, not only customers but also the team, in order to learn the cultural aspects that might be really helpful, in order to better adapt the course, in order to better serve the customers. So one key aspect is try to learn from the cultural difference, more than difference, because I don't really like that term, but the cultural uniqueness. Every country has cultural uniqueness. Try to learn from that aspect. Make sure that your team also is willing to learn from that aspect, the cultural uniqueness of every country, and also try to bear in mind these big values that you have. For example, we have here a big value. Every time that you see an opportunity, you need to look for the numbers of that opportunity. Once you have those two pieces of data, the opportunity and some numbers about that, we can discuss that opportunity. Even if you are creating a course, even if you are trying to come to an end a course. We also tend to an end a course. For example, every course that you have in a platform, it's consuming resources. For example, if that course is not producing the returns that you might be making from a different course, you need to start thinking. That's when you need to include everything that you know, the political aspect, where the trends are going on. If the trends are going to the wind and solar plants, why you are continue developing, for example, this another course. You need to integrate everything into one single thing. So two skills here. One, try to identify and learn the cultural uniqueness. And second, try to learn a way that your team can be aware of your cultural and values of your company, but also their own identity that they might be really useful in their own context.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, I love those 2 points. And they're both about culture too, right? So you need to understand that, like you said, the cultural uniqueness of the new markets and country you want to scale to. But you also want to figure out a way that you codify your own company's culture. So how as you grow, you don't lose who you are and who the company is, and how you serve your customers, right? Which is really cool. Awesome. Okay, we are running out of time, but we have a time for a few questions. But really quickly, I want to share this. This is Jose's contact information for anyone here that really enjoyed this event and would like to stay in touch with Jose. Feel free to contact him through here. This is email as well as his LinkedIn. So we'll keep that up here as we go through the questions. So it looks like, oops, sorry. Sorry, let me go back here. Hey, let's see. I think that we had like one question come up real quick from Tony. So Tony, his question for Jose is just out of curiosity. He's another, other than mechanical and electrical engineering and mentoring, did you take any formal education specifically around international relations or MBA or anything related to that? Or do you have any training or educational recommendations and suggestions?
Okay, thanks for that question. As an entrepreneur, as a professional, you need to continue preparing yourself all the time. Specifically going to address this question, if I have another formal education, yes, I possess another formal education. I have a master in corporate finance and search of funding, which is very closely to my business. So I think it was really helpful. However, I continue nurturing myself with another knowledge. I read every time that I can, books, papers, and also I learn from people. Every time that I have a customer or a representative from a big company that we are selling our courses, I try to learn from them. So my best two pieces of advice for you: if you can access to a formal education that might be helpful for you in order to understand how the international business work, that's going to be okay. However, I could say from my experience that it was not the solely factor in order to scale my companies, because the first company they scaled was when I was 24 years old, so I hadn't any master's there, just my degree. But if you can access a formal education, it's okay. However, if you can read every day, you can nurture yourself with knowledge, trust me, you are going to be able to do great things, because the knowledge constantly is evolving. So it's very important for us to continue learning, develop our service, learn as much as we can.
All right. No, that's a really, really great lesson, and something we should definitely keep in mind. Like, I think everyone, even if you're not an entrepreneur, should be a lifelong learner. But as an entrepreneur, you'll realize that it's a very demanding job, and you have to continue learning and growing in order to continue building your company and growing that, for everyone, for the people you're serving, so your customers, but also for your own team, right? In order to sustain your company, and you want to sustain your company so that you can continue serving more people, but also taking care of your team. Right? So that's a really great place to end there. Do we have any last questions? Last few minutes? Any last questions? Feel free to pop them up in the chat room. But yeah, before we end, I want to just take the time for us to all take a quick group photo. So can we all just turn on our cameras really quickly? We can't do it in person, but we'd love to have a photo with Jose, even if it's virtually. So can we all turn on our cameras? Don't be shy. Come on, Esso. Come on, Kenny. I love that Kenny's here. Everyone turn on your cameras. Nice, nice. Okay, it's just me. I'm sorry. I think it's just me that hasn't turned it on. Okay, fantastic. Okay, we're gonna take two photos. We're gonna take one that's serious and we'll take a silly one after this. Okay, great. 3, 2, 1, cheers. Okay, and then we'll take another one that's a little more silly. Okay, 3, 2, 1, cheers. Yay. Fantastic. Okay. Right. And then before we end, let me pull up my PowerPoint slides again. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Great. It's just me who needs to pull it up. Okay. If you guys can just really quickly pull out your phones and just scan this QR code, and just fill out this quick feedback survey for us. It's only 2, 3 questions. It'll take you like 30 seconds, but it'll give us a lot of really good feedback about how we can improve our events moving forward. So please go ahead and do that. And in the meantime, I just want to say thank you so much, Jose. I know I've met you for over a year, and every single time I have a conversation with you, I'm just more floored and more blown away by your humility, but also your breadth of experiences. So I really appreciate you spending the time to share even more of your stories with us. I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else here did as well. I think one of the biggest kind of takeaways is that there's a lot, like being an entrepreneur is a lifelong journey. There's a lot of learning that has to go into it. So make sure that you're just constantly willing to learn. But second of all, this is something that you often say to our Tech for Good students too, that you're never ever going to be fully prepared for all the challenges that come your way as an entrepreneur. But that should not stop you from going out and doing what it takes to make your enterprise successful. So embrace the discomfort, embrace the unknown, and just make sure you go out and do what you need to do. And also in terms of scaling your business, make sure that you remember your customer. Remember your customer, put them first, what their needs are, and look at what the market needs are first before you look into scaling. Right. So those are some of the biggest lessons I learned today. And yeah, last but not least, everyone, this is Pim's information. If you enjoyed today's event or you're interested in connecting with us for future resources around social enterprises or your social entrepreneurship, anything like that, feel free to contact us. So this is our website, LinkedIn, as well as our LinkedIn group. So if you scan this QR code, you can join our little community and email us if you have any follow-up questions too. Okay, so big thank you to everyone for joining today. Another round of applause for Jose. Thank you for spending the time and sharing your stories with us. Thank you for my team that showed up. Team, thank you for showing up. And Kenny, it's great to see you. A happy Mid-Autumn Festival for everyone that's in China, but also everyone that tuned in from all over the world too. Thank you guys so much and have a wonderful rest of your day. And make sure you go out and scale your business. Okay, go out and do that and keep us updated. Okay, thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you for
Thank you.